Exit from executive session.
Second by Mr. Giuliano. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Knott.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, Madam Secretary, members of the Commission. My name is Barry Knott. I represent Reef LLC, which owns the car wash that is the subject of the famous Stratford High School zoning appeals, of which you are all familiar. I've left at your desk for each of you 4 exhibits, which I'll be making reference during the course of my presentation, which is going to be very brief. I'm here tonight because we settled the litigation that we had with the town, subject to a few items, one of which is we're giving the town a construction easement to go on our property in order to facilitate the construction of the Stratford High School Phase 1 building. They're giving us some money, and we need an exit out onto Barnum Avenue, which was one of the problems that precipitated our appeal in the first place. Now, Exhibit 1 is the site plan of the car wash that I submitted in 2001 when we initially went in for the car wash application. And I've highlighted out at Barnum Avenue, you can see that there was both an entrance and an exit onto Barnum Avenue in our original submittal. Exhibit 2 is a copy of the approval letter from 2001 from the Zoning Commission, where they articulate the approval of the car wash subject to certain conditions, the first of which is that the exit onto Barnum Avenue shall be eliminated. Now, let me explain why that happened. I couldn't remember why it happened, and I went back into my records, and we had had discussions with the police department at the time, and what the police department recommended was that in the event of a busy day at the car wash, that we may want to put a temporary gate out on to Barnum Avenue to keep cars rolling through the car wash so that they didn't get blocked as cars were exiting onto Barnum Avenue. And when they made that recommendation to us, we decided that rather than get involved in that temporary gate, we were going to close the exit onto Barnum Avenue and have everybody go out onto King Street. So it was really the applicant that caused this impediment that we're asking to be relieved tonight. Exhibit 3 is a copy of the site plan that we ultimately got approved in 2001. And as you can see, I've highlighted in orange, in yellow the car wash building, and in orange the blocking off of Barnum Avenue. And Exhibit 4 is the new proposed site plan, which shows Barnum Avenue opening up again with a right turn only onto Barnum Avenue. So as the cars exit, they will not make a left onto Barnum Avenue because that could cause traffic problems. Right turn only. We want a 28-foot wide aperture out into the street that will allow 2 cars to be to exit from Barnum Avenue from the car wash at the same time. So with this slight site plan modification, from what I understand, that the town has received approvals from all other bodies and agencies required to resolve our appeal, and this will take care of it once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Is there a motion to accept?
Madam Chair, I'll move to accept the approval to allow for the right turn only driveway onto Barnum Ave.
Motion by Mr. Fuller, second by Mr. Paul. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp.
Okay, we're going to resume our work plan. We've got a lot on it today. Okay, I'm going to go back into order for number 3, which is the campsite review. Mr. Urbanski, can you walk us through this? Starting with...
Sure. So 211 Ferry Boulevard has been continued. 50 East Main Street has been continued. 140 through 180 Watson Boulevard has been tabled. The next 2 applications are for 6900 Main Street, Sikorsky. The first on this list was for a recycling facility, and let me make sure I've got the right one here. This first application for the PETTS building We received staff comments from the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, John Goucher. He did have some comments. He did feel that the plans in the application itself lacked some detail. I believe you folks should have received this email in your staff comments. It seems that substantially the application does meet all the requirements. A recommendation that I would have would be that should the commission decide to approve this application, they should do so with the condition that we receive, the Office of Planning and Zoning receive a correspondence from the Mr. Goucher saying that he is satisfied with the modifications that to be made.
Quick question, Jay. Would that be for both the recycling facility and the lack of a better word, the PETS building?
No, this was just, he gave us two staff comments. One staff comment had substantial comments. That was for the PETTS building. The recycling facility, he had no comments, which essentially means.
So there's really no stipulation or condition of approval to attach to the recycling facility?
Correct.
Just the PETTS building?
That's correct.
Okay.
What does PETTS stand for?
It stands for physic. What was it? Go ahead.
So transmissions.
Oh, that's right. Thank you.
I can never remember that.
All right, so let's take these motions separately. The 1600 Main Street Recycling Facility. There were no issues that it came from Mr. Goucher on that, correct?
Correct.
Motion to approve the 6,900 Main Street recycling facility.
Thank you. Is there a second? By Mr. Augustus. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, the second one, which is the 16900 Main Street PETS building. Do you want to make a motion on
A
that? Is
motion
the
to
condition-
approve 6,900 Main Street, the PETTS building for the transmission, engineering transformative transmission building, on the condition that the DEP, whether it's Mr. Goucher or anyone in DEP, feels satisfied with the project.
They received, that the P&Z administrator received
And the P&Z
correspondence.
administrator is duly notified of that.
Yeah. Okay. Second by Mr. Paul. Any others? Anything else?
I have just one comment. I looked at all those prints, Madam Chair, and everything that's to do with the Pete building and the recycling building, and I'd just like to make it be aware that there's going to be a separator tank, and I can rest assured it's going to be the only one in town that's going to have people making sure that they test the oxygen before they go down to clean the baffles out. They're going to have the tripod. The fire department's going to be there. This is what I keep complaining about when we have all of these. There's a very big issue there with them being underground collecting very bad air at the bottom. And this is one there, and I know where it is at Sikorsky's. I know that they will follow the OSHA rule to the T for that. I'd like to just make sure that I wanted this on record, because this comes up everywhere we go. I mean, I don't want to name where they are, but I don't see anybody following through on that. And a lot of construction workers die in these things. And I know it's not to be with zoning, but it's in there on our prints and everything, just making aware.
So are you suggesting, are you making us aware that, A, that we need to follow through on their compliance, and B, that there's going to be additional work on the town side?
Nothing on the town side and nothing with additional with Sikorsky's. I'm just stating that they have this facility in the ground, and it will be followed to the T with OSHA regulations, that it'll be worked on appropriately, because where it is inside of Sikorsky's, I mean, being that's a federal government building, you go in there, everything gets followed to the T with OSHA regs, with everything you can imagine, federal regs, everything.
Do you
So
want to
well, I'm always harping on that, and I just want to make it, because it's going to be it's a great thing to see that there, because they're going to follow that.
Yes. You don't need to, you're not suggesting to add more stipulations that they follow the federal regulations?
No, yes, Madam Chair, I've been in there, worked in there through the course of my 40 years, and they follow everything.
Good, so I'll leave that. Anybody else have anything else? Otherwise, I'll call a vote.
I'll call a vote.
Oh, you call,
Yeah, it was already voted on.
What is that?
Oh.
Did we only vote on it?
oh, that's right, it did
Oh,
call a
you
vote.
just-
Yeah,
oh, it's
you were just
commentary.
commenting on it. Okay, zoning enforcement complaints.
I just want to, I think we forgot to do the minutes to approve.
No, we didn't.
No, we did.
We
Okay.
did, I
must
have
have
them
missed
here.
it.
Yeah, we did the minutes first, and then we went and pulled it out of order.
Mr.
Gotcha.
Paul and
Perfect.
Mr. Giuliani.
See, I'm not the only one here.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? I was just making it.
It's the candy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Giving everybody a sugar high.
Only one of those.
Okay, we do have an accessory apartment application. It was in our packets for a temporary healthcare structure. Mr. Hibansky, you want to walk us through it?
Right, well, and just to clarify, it wasn't an accessory apartment application, but it's closely related to that. We discussed some of the new Public Act 17-155 regarding temporary healthcare structures. We discussed it for maybe 20 minutes last month, and then you folks thought it was a good idea to refer it to the Planning Commission for their review. After a lengthy discussion, the Planning Commission determined that the new Public Act 17-155 would have a negligible impact on residents by offering a more diversified aging-in-place options, and also that it would only complement our existing accessory apartment options. So the Planning Commission has chosen to take no action, and I would support that as well.
Okay, well, it is passed. It's just a matter of us accepting that public act, correct?
No, we either do nothing or we opt out.
I'm struggling to follow. So we have this accessory apartment. Well, it's not really an accessory apartment, but it behaves like an accessory apartment.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's to allow anyone who's elderly or disabled to live with their families effectively.
That's correct. I'm a little confused, the idea of opting out.
What is it? Are we voting to approve this, or if we're opting out, what are we doing?
Nothing.
Then why is this on the agenda?
Because it's a planning and zoning decision that is relevant to the town, and you folks make those important decisions for the town.
That's why I'm confused.
Yeah, I think Mr. Fuller and I are in the same place.
I didn't say that I'm opting out for the town. It's not my responsibility to say that we're gonna opt out. That's your decision.
I didn't think we had a choice.
You do. You do have a choice.
Okay, so we,
Maybe I didn't explain this clearly. The act has been passed that says that anybody, as of right, can come build one of these structures unless the town decides to opt out. And they say that, no, we already have a regulation that takes care of this, we don't need it. So towns can either opt out and say that we're going to rely on our accessory apartment regulation, or they can do nothing, and someone could come in and potentially apply for a temporary healthcare structure, which is what the Planning Commission has recommended that the town do, or is recommended to you folks as well.
but that's not opting out. That's why.
No, it's not opting out. Opting out is saying that you don't want people to be able to provide one of these healthcare structures.
I would disagree with that.
Okay, now we're in the same place. Okay. So, does everybody understand that? That opting out means that they cannot do these temporary health structures?
I would oppose that. I think
I would oppose that.
this is a very,
It's a
one,
good-
it keeps families together. Two, it's private property rights. It's three, I think we should treat it like an accessory apartment and review them like we would review any accessory apartment.
I would agree. I don't.
We agree.
We agree.
Yeah.
We're on the same page.
Yeah.
We're agreeing not to opt out.
Yeah.
Do we
So
need to make
are
a
we
motion for
voting
this?
then to approve this, to accept this?
No,
Take no action, there's no vote.
there's no vote.
Okay.
Okay.
That's why I'm confused. There's something on the agenda.
Same here. I had the same thought. Because it is a good plan. I mean, it's
Yeah.
exactly what we're trying to do with our families.
And, Madam Chair, it's just going to be, with all the codes for that, to be handicapped accessible. I'm sure that the inspectors go in there to make sure that the grab bars, so on and so forth, are there.
Right. Well, we still have our accessory apartment regulations
Right.
that go with this. This adds another feature. That's all it does.
Because it's, I think it's a, you know, we don't act, it still stays, it is, and I don't know, is there anything we need to add to it? I mean, there's so much with senior citizens and people having them in
Well,
their houses now.
It's already a state act. It's just a matter of us saying, yeah, we're going to allow it to continue in Stratford, or we're going to say, no, we're not going to.
I would encourage opting in, not opting out.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
having an alarm so they could, you know, get emergency
I
ambulances.
happen to agree with you, but that would be something different.
Case-by-case scenario at that point.
Okay, so do nothing means we've opted in.
Okay.
That's essentially, okay, so we're moving on.
All right, so can I, do you need a motion for that?
No,
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 Have to do nothing, that's right. Oh, wow.
that's what it was confusing.
yeah, yeah. Okay, we have a couple of things in sediment and erosion control, that's sort of a place, but 211 Ferry Boulevard
It's out.
has been continued, and we have the East Main Street self-storage,
which has also been
continued. Great, and then we go to the Greenway. Linda's not here. Do you want to give any update, or is it, we'll move on then?
We gotta go to,
And we already handled one item, 1189 Barnum Avenue. And now we have the 1239 Broadbridge, which is the Russian, I don't have it in front of me, Orthodox Church, which I had in front of me. They're looking for a modification to a stipulation that was presented before we were here, I believe. Jay, you want to bring us up to speed? Because most of us were not on the commission when this was originally approved.
Sure. In November of 2011, the Zoning Commission approved the construction of a parking lot adjacent to the church at 1240 Broadbridge Avenue. On the site plan that was approved, there included a guardrail along the perimeter of the parking lot, as well as up to the front. And there was a proposed chain link gate here in the front. The attorney representing the applicant has submitted a letter requesting a modification of the site plan, requesting that the guardrail around the perimeter of the parking lot be removed due to financial reasons. I went out and did an inspection at the site. I'm not sure if anybody else had the opportunity to do so, but you know, you do have houses that are quite close, not so much on the 1185 side, but very close on the 1239 side. And I'm not sure I would necessarily advocate for the removal of the guardrail along the entirety of the property. I think that you would have the protection of the proposed rain garden in the rear, as well as the home over here to the at 1239, as well as the protection of the home over here at 1185. You may choose that you want to eliminate it in some places and not everywhere, but
Yeah,
Mr. Fuller?
I would agree with that, to protect the other houses and even the rain garden. You don't want a car or bicycle or anything to fly into a rain garden or the private property. So I would suggest the partial removal of the, maybe the excessive parts of the guardrail.
so
But we should define what the limits are.
Well, I have a question on that, because I didn't see where the benefit of the guardrail would be as opposed to a chain link fence or any other stockade. I mean, why
More sturdier defense.
why a guardrail is what I didn't understand.
because if a car was to be pulling in, let's say driving down Broadbridge, takes a left in and decides to pull into this space here, and their foot slips, the brake slips, they could drive directly into this house, potentially. And the guardrail would stop a car from doing that, whereas a chain link fence, the car would just drive right through it.
Okay, but are there other alternatives that they could use that may not be as costly as a guardrail?
I don't know what their financial situation is.
I mean-
You know, I don't know.
I've seen blocks put in front of some of those parking spots, you know, so you can't go over the block. Would a chain link fence do? Do we have to stipulate a guardrail?
I mean, yeah, I'm not sure what they can afford. my recommendation would be that if you want something to protect people, okay, you deny this request and you say, tell us what you want in replacement of that, and then you folks could determine, I feel comfortable with what you're replacing it, or you don't. The applicant didn't really give us much to choose from, other than say that they don't want to spend the money, well, they don't have the money to put in the guardrail.
Madam Chair, could we, I guess, keep with the original approved plan and maybe work out some kind of a phase-in process where they can phase in this guardrail over time as they get the money? Give them maybe a year, 2 years, whatever is going to be needed, and get some feedback from them on that?
I don't know if we can do that. One of the thoughts that I had was we could go with a partial removal of the guardrail, and if they want to come back to us with a substitute material or solution for the remaining sections of the guardrail that we left in place, then we could look at what their ideas might be and see if they're satisfactory.
Kind of hard for me to say, at least, because I wasn't on the commission at the time, so I don't know what was discussed then to determine whether or not a guardrail was required, and was there any public comments requesting guardrails?
No, I read through the minutes, I read through all the conditions of approval.
Good question.
They didn't actually state that the guardrail had to be there, but there was more than one piece of paper that showed the detail of the guardrail. It was a big, beefy wooden guardrail. It wasn't just something that was put on the site plan and never discussed. It looked like, because of the photos that they had there of the guardrail, it was at least discussed at some point that that was going to be going in. How much of an issue was made of it, it didn't reflect it in the minutes.
I'm sure it was a safety issue. I'm more inclined to say that it needs to be some protection for cars moving into the neighboring property without stating necessarily what that material is. Mr. Fuller?
Was it when you were reviewing the file for the approval back in 2011, was there any sort of like traffic study or any sort of incident report that suggested cars were going into people's private property?
No.
So that somehow this guardrail, no matter how detailed the mechanics of the guardrail were discussed, somehow this guardrail came into play, I imagine over some perceived public safety situation, but it doesn't really seem that there was like evidence to the public safety situation too.
Correct. I can only speculate.
Yeah.
To Commissioner Fuller, I mean, this was basically a wooded property, so there couldn't have been prior incidents like this until they've converted it into a parking lot recently. My question is, when they do something like this, do they have to notify the neighbors that they're coming in front of zoning, or do the neighbors don't have any say in whether or not this happens at this point?
No. If I determine that it's if it's not a substantial change to the site plan, then no. It wouldn't require a public hearing.
And is the chain link gate still going to be there at the entrance? Okay, so that means people could park in there at any time, which that's the church's problem. But,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, my personal thoughts are,
That's a
is
good
if we
thought.
told them that they had to keep the guardrails on the neighboring properties, but not along the street or along the back, they would save a significant amount of money and would still be protecting the neighbors. So that might be a possibility.
There's another thought that just came forward. There's a possibility that the neighbors have already put up a chain link fence on their own to separate the property.
There is a fence on the right.
There's-
Right,
there is a fence.
Looking at the property, the right property is my cousin's property.
Yeah, oh, okay.
My husband's cousin's property.
So we have
And
expert.
I'm 90% sure there's a fence going down the side there.
Can't get better than that.
It's the wood fence partly, too.
I think it's a wood fence.
Yeah. So
Okay, so I think if I'm listening to everyone pretty accurately, there is an inclination to have some kind of protection to the left and right neighbors. But there's some openness in terms of what that protection might be. We could possibly phrase it that we will remove the guardrail fence around the perimeters, but there must be some protection to the satisfaction of the planning and zoning administrator to satisfy protecting the neighbors. Okay, somebody,
Madam Chair,
yes.
I'm leaning towards, I understand whatever the financial is or whatever, but that one side, like Jay said, it is rather close if you go over there. I mean, I forgot what the footage is. It should have that wooden, heavy guardrail there. I mean, I've seen people step on the gas instead of the brake and take out cars like you wouldn't. I've done it. I think we all probably did it. It slipped.
What
And
I was,
that's close on that one side. I mean, just for that one side for now.
I think we're agreeing with you. The difference being is that we're allowing the planning, I'm suggesting that we're allowing the type of protection on that side, or both sides, where there is property, to be determined by the planning and zoning administrator. Meaning that if the planning and, if Mr. Urbanski says, look, the only thing that I've seen here that you've shown me that is going to protect these properties, which is the will of the commission, is a wooden guardrail, then that's what I'm going to ask you for. But if they come back and say, okay, we'll put up a chain link fence, and Mr. Urbanski says, okay, that'll provide protection to the neighborhoods, I'll allow that. That's what I'm suggesting, to allow Mr. Urbanski to make the final decision, understanding that this commission has deemed there should be some protection to the neighborhood, to the neighbors on either side, left and right.
I agree with that. So why don't we just leave it to Mr. Urbanski and make a motion? Mr. Urbanski,
That wall.
Mr. Urbanski, I make a motion.
Church pay for it.
I make a motion that Mr. Urbanski decide on what they should do on that one side for now.
Okay, that was good.
Make guardrails great again, second.
Second by Mr. Fuller. Any other stipulations? Do you have that, Gail?
Not yet.
So I just want to confirm, they will have to put something down the side property lines to protect the adjacent houses. It does not necessarily have to be a guardrail, but it's something that's to ensure the protection of those houses.
Correct.
Substantial, right?
Yeah. Whatever gets the job done.
Well, it's a stipulation of the permit. So they can't get a approval until they satisfy.
Like a little plastic fence and say,
Mr.
"Well, there you
Bansky."
go."
Well, the work's already, I mean, the site work has been done. This was the last thing that they needed to do. So, yeah. I don't think there needs to be a timeline on it. We would just tell them that until you present something to us, you're in compliance. We're going to give you a reasonable amount of time to address it. If you don't, then we will proceed with enforcement that you have not met the conditions of approval, which will be
Sounds
flexible.
good.
Absolutely, Mr. Administrator.
It's been motion, it's been second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, you guys up to doing number 9, or it's 9:30? Want to call it a night?
Call it a night. Well, I do recommend we use the admin session, the next admin session, to clean up some of the tabled items.
I think that would be a good plan. I think that is an agreement. Okay, with that in mind, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Oh, if you want it.
By Mr. Roguskis, second by Mr. Fuller. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Probably you won't get it till tomorrow afternoon.